Hello, everybody, and good morning. I am Neil Coulong. You are listening to the New Standard Podcast, typical of Lance Williams, our show leader, our hero, our everything. He is not here today. He is out on assignment, most likely defending America's interests, both domestic and foreign, in an assignment that I am not allowed to discuss. I only know because I have to tell you all, unfortunately, he's not going to be here. This is your opportunity to exit if you don't want to listen to me. But I will say we do have a special guest coming up that is going to help guide us through the topic of the day. He is Doug Farrar, the editor and leader of Touchdown Wire for USA Today Sports Media Group, and one of the finest football minds you will find anywhere, and an excellent writer and a great guy, great guitar player too, if that's your thing. Ask Doug what music he likes to play. It's a lot of fun. Great conversations with Doug. He's a frequent guest of the program. I'm going to bring him on in a little bit. I wanted to start off by discussing a little bit of the Steelers news of the day. Today is the day, according to multiple sources, in which veteran outside linebacker, edge rusher Marcus Golden will visit with the Steelers. Golden, a savvy veteran, probably a little bit of an underachiever considering where he was drafted in his career to date, the fact he's still looking for a job. He is more or less on the Melvin Ingram recruitment circuit across the NFL right now. He unfortunately is probably not the level of Melvin Ingram, but he is the type of player the Steelers have been looking to bring in over the last couple seasons. They get the veteran edge rusher for depth behind solid starters, to put it mildly, TJ Watt and Alex Highsmith. Alex Highsmith, a player that is reporting to OTAs despite entering the final year of his contract, a guy that will certainly strike a pretty good price in free agency should he reach that. It's a good question what his long-term future is. Golden would not be brought in to replace either one of them, obviously, but this is a team that has needed depth at their outside linebacker positions in each of the last, 80 years, something like that. It's a key position on a team. It might not be a full complement of snaps kind of position, but it is one that can probably generate anywhere from $2 to $5 million a year, which was reportedly around the amount that the Steelers offered former Steelers outside linebacker Bud Dupree, who ended up opting to sign just a one-year deal with his home state in Georgia, the Atlanta Falcons. The word was the Steelers wanted to sign Dupree for 2 years. I think it's fairly obvious why. They aren't sure what's going to happen with Highsmith, and the fact that they continue to find in the secondary free agency market a need for a veteran pass rusher like they have, which is why they brought in Ingram, which is why they looked at Bud Dupree, and they'll continue to do it until they have that the depth of that position locked up. It was not a position they expressly addressed, although I would say that the move they made with Herbig, drafted in 4th or 5th round. Somebody keep me honest here. I should know that. I'm bummed I don't. He's a development player, probably above anything else, and not a guy that I think we can reasonably expect to play in week one. Now, is he a long-term answer? Probably. He's somebody that I would think they'd have some desire to develop and build. Pretty small guy for now. We'll see how that works out. But as of now, Marcus Golden will visit with the Steelers. I would imagine both sides would be interested in working something out. Is that a 1-year deal? Is that a 2-year deal? I don't know. We'll see. As we heard earlier this week, the NFL has brought back a rule that allows teams to dress a third emergency quarterback and not occupy a game day roster spot in doing so. I think it's clear that the Steelers had a very good sense that that's how things were going to go in the league meeting, which is why they snapped up veteran stalwart and Steelers, at least social media legend, Mason Rudolph, before that rule was formally voted on. But clearly a team that doesn't have to use a roster spot on game day to dress the third quarterback is going to see the benefits of being able to do so by using a veteran during the week to help out with the logistical details of preparing a starter to play. I have often said Mitch Trubisky serves in that role, and that's why they're paying Mitch Trubisky $8 million this year. That really should be the bulk of the utilization for that sort of a role. They also have position coaches, that thing we never talk about, coaching. They handle a lot of that stuff. But another set of eyes for, I would assume, the veteran minimum, which new NFL rules implemented this year that change the old veteran exception rules on the salary cap, mean a team can give a player a signing bonus that will not count against the cap. So Mason Rudolph probably counts somewhere around the $750,000 minimum that he likely got on likely a one-year deal with the Steelers. So Rudolph is back. He will actually dress this year, which he did not last year. Not much anyway. And will continue to help out doing the things that a third string quarterback would do, barring injury, of course. If there is an injury, naturally, you'd think he'd be the backup. So very good. Shout out to everybody again. Thank you for joining. I am Neil Coulong. I am the solo host of today's show on the New Standard Podcast. Lance Williams is out on international assignment. And if I told you what he was doing, I would have to kill you. So we're not going to do that. But what we are going to do is add longtime friend of the program, Touchdown Wire's Doug Farrar. Again, one of the best writers you will find in this space, one of the most knowledgeable football historians, as well as current tactics, strategy. What I totally biffed
all that crap.
I totally biffed that. Sorry.
All that nerdy crap.
I asked Doug to join us today because, and this is the topic of today's The New Standard Podcast, we want to dive in to all things press coverage. This is something I feel, and the Steelers have not confirmed this and probably won't flat out say it. It is a technique in which the Steelers have not delved recently. It's not a strategy that they have used. They haven't drafted players looking to implement that sort of strategy. Everything I see right now from what the Steelers have done this offseason strongly suggests that's what they are planning to play within their secondary. Oh, yeah. Now, coverage-wise, nothing you do is ever going to be 100% all the time. They're going to mix things up. The reality is, though, selecting Joey Porter in the second round with a first-round pick is a move toward utilizing press coverage. Seventh-round pick, what is his first name? Trice.
Corey Trice Jr.
Corey. God, I keep forgetting that. I keep going with Obi Trice.
They're both juniors, by the way.
Yes. As Lance is pointing out, we stupidly got into, and I'm going to admit this to you, Doug, as you are my superior and I need to be admonished for such things. There are parts of Corey Trice I can't help but see similar pathway for what Richard Sherman took as far as the NFL goes.
Sure.
A player that, and I'm talking 10,000 foot level. I'm not talking specifics. Trice is a better athlete. Trice is a lot bigger. Trice obviously didn't have the same type of tape as Sherman did, even as a cornerback. The fact that he went in the fifth round versus the seventh says something. Trice played safety for a bit as well. That's not something Sherman did. But I'm talking about one, arm length. They are freakishly long-armed cornerbacks, which you could see without a whole lot of need for evidence, the value of that within a press coverage scheme. And they're players that probably need a little bit of seasoning, but are going to be looked at least in my vantage point, they're going to be looked at for contributions early in their career, ready or not. They're going to put them out there. You wrote a great piece going over Corey Trice and the Steelers' decision to draft him. What do you see when you watch him on film?
Well, it's interesting you mentioned that the Steelers haven't said they want to do this. After they took Porter, Terrell Austin, the DC, said one of the things we always look to do is look at guys and how they play in press, because we're going to play man, but we are going to also play some zone. We are also asking these guys to tackle some big backs in our division. Porter has the ability to do all those things. When you start looking at skill sets, I felt really comfortable with what he brought to the table for us, and we were good there. When Porter was in press coverage last season for Penn State, he allowed 5 catches on 13 targets in press for 63 yards. There's an in-cut against Marvin Harrison Jr. where Marvin Harrison caught the pass, but it was not easy because Porter was just all over him.
It's a battle.
And Trice had 7 press reps last year for Purdue. They should triple that at least, where he was targeted. And the only reception was an interception in the end zone against Syracuse. So they are going all in on this. And when you look at what the Steelers did Cam Sutton had some good press reps. They were not they played a lot of man, but they didn't play a lot of press man.
Exactly.
And in today's NFL, it's so much quick game. It's so much 0 to 3 step. You're not always going to have time to get to the quarterback to even disrupt him, much less sack him. If you can't play press, and it can be press zone or press man. You go back to the Legion of Boom. You mentioned Sherman. Sherman was playing press and cover 3 all day long. So you can play press zone too. It's not just man. But if you can't press a receiver, if you can't disrupt that route, if you can't force the quarterback to get to his third step, and now, oh crap, I got a hitch because the guy's not where he should be because this, huge pterodactyl guy just took him somewhere that I didn't want him to go. And the receiver, you have to be able to disrupt the route at the line of scrimmage because I would say that's 30 to 40% of your, more and more these days, because it's so much quick game, coverage equates to pressure, and press coverage specifically equates to pressure. If you can't do that, you're going to give up a lot of short underneath stuff, and people are just going to, it's death by 1,000 paper cuts, and you're going to die. Your defense is not going to work. So to have these 2 press guys, Porter, I think he was my CB2. It was Devin Witherspoon, Christian Gonzalez, then Porter. Trice, I thought, had about 4th to 5th round tape. He's a good press. He's not as, agile and, following through the route and all that. But I think without the injury history, he probably would have gone, high 3rd day instead of 7th. So that's a bargain. But clearly the Steelers are telling you exactly what they want their defensive DNA to be, as far as just big, nasty, aggressive guys who are going to get up in your freaking face and go for it. So that's, they said with their words, Terrell Austin did, and with their actions, and Tomlin said it too, he's Joey Porter's kid and he played high school ball with Dino Tomlin and all that. That's a nice story. The reason they took Joey Porter that early is because this is the kind of quarterback they want, and they recognize, probably because they play so much quick game themselves to a lesser, that's a whole different podcast. But they understand the effect of press coverage against the modern passing game. And again, if you don't have some level of press, and really outside of Cam Sutton, I don't think they had anyone who did it very well last year. So they know exactly what they need to do, and they went aggressively after these guys to do this thing.
You know who didn't do it well? Akella Witherspoon.
Right.
Arthur Mollett. These are 2 players the Steelers sent packing after rookie minicamp.
Sure.
Which to me, I think is as clear an indication of this as anything. You're looking at 2 players who are not going to be able to thrive in that kind of a scheme. No. They're veteran players with 1 year left on their contracts anyway. They're giving them the opportunity to pick up somewhere else before minicamp because they're not going to be able to play the way the Steelers want to play.
Well, where did Cam Sutton go? He went to Detroit. They played a crap ton of press. So
exactly. So that remains to be seen. That was going to be my next point to bring up. You didn't get Sutton, but the Steelers went after Sutton. They wanted Sutton. That was not a decision that, the Lions wanted him a little bit more, paid him a little bit more. The Steelers are operating, within reason financially. It's not going to kill them if they don't have Cam Sutton, but he's a player that can do what they would want to do if this is the style that they were going to play.
Right. And he can also play press in the slot, which is harder because you don't have the boundary. I remember I've told you the story before. I was talking to Sherm years ago about why it's harder to play in the slot than outside. And Sherm said, because the boundary is no longer your friend.
Yeah.
So if you can play press slot, and Porter and Trice are more outside guys, If you can get that press slot guy, like Pat Surtain is amazing press slot. Darius Slay, like the best. Diamador Lenoir, the guy for the 49ers, who is still with the 49ers, really underrated. Really, if you can play press all over the field, that just adds a different characteristic. So I think if they had kept Sutton, maybe he was their press slot guy. And again, that's really tough to do because now you got 2 and 3 way goes. You got these smaller guys, and if you don't get your hands on them, it then if you're a bigger corner, it becomes mystery meat because now you got to follow this little quick guy all over the place. So that's not always easy.
One interesting element to this, the slot, the position that Arthur Maulet played probably most often for the Steelers in terms of total utilization. Obviously, Cam Sutton played down there quite a bit, but Maulet's role was to play in the slot. They didn't feel that he was going to be able to do that. I could see why they wouldn't be able to. Chandon Sullivan, a player brought in from Minnesota, in a way, not directly and not intentionally, I'm sure, but what you're looking at is an unofficial trade between the Steelers and the Vikings, salary being arbitrary. The Steelers pick up 2 of their former defensive backs. You're looking at Chandon Sullivan, a player that frankly I'd never heard of before until the Steelers had signed him, and then that Patrick Peterson guy.
Yeah.
Steelers' big offseason acquisition. My question, from your vantage point, where do you see Peterson fitting in within a press scheme? Is he a slot press guy?
He could be. He's got the savvy to do it. He's obviously not the athlete he once was, but he's still got enough in the tank. And it was hard to tell with that Minnesota defense because they ran like the Railroads retreat cover 2 all the time, and it was really bad. And they didn't. That was an absentee defensive coordinator. Sorry, Ed Donatel, but that was just bad. So he can do that. I'm looking at slot. Maulet, Sutton, and Terrell Edmonds played the most slot snaps for the Steelers last year, so they're going to have a new plan there, obviously. Peterson can do some of that.
All by design.
Yeah,
that's not an accident. This isn't a recovery. That's all by design.
Yeah,
they kind of went after Edmonds, kind of, is what I've heard. Not really, just more like, well, if you don't want to make much and you want to come back, sure, no guarantees on your spot on the team or anything. But they did want Sutton. So to me, it kind of suggests I said all offseason, they're probably going to draft 2 cornerbacks because they don't have any beyond this season. They are going to need to bring in bodies, guys that at least are signed next year. To me, that suggests you are going to overhaul your philosophy in a pretty significant way, because what you're saying by not signing anybody is none of these guys can do what we want to do. We're going to make decisions when we get to that point, but nobody's getting anything guaranteed here.
And they didn't do what a lot of teams do, which is like the Seahawks drafted Tariq Woolen and Kobe Bryant. They're very different corners. Tariq Woolen had more press snaps than any corner in the league last year, over 300. It wasn't always targeted on those, obviously. No one has 300 targets. So you'd be very stressed out. But so that, and Kobe Bryant maybe had 30, and he was a slot guy a lot. The Steelers didn't get like Joey Porter Jr. and, say, Clark Phillips. They got 2 guys to do one very specific thing, and Terrell Austin was all about it in the presser after they took Porter. So they're not disguising their intentions. They're holding up the banner saying, damn it, this is what we're going to do.
Yeah, I think if we get into the reasons behind this, if we establish that they drafted 2 cornerbacks that if they're going to play in the NFL, it's going to be because of their ability to play press.
Yep.
I said often leading into the draft, I don't mind Joey Porter's overall game. I don't have an issue with his game. I'm not sure if he's a first round guy because he's got 1 fastball right now and his other pitches don't look to be much of anything.
Yeah, he was better in zone and trail last year than he was the year before. He's like Randy Johnson when he was developing his slider. And it wasn't Mr.
Yes, that's exactly what I mean. And you know what? Randy Johnson was not a first round pick.
No,
that's exactly what I'm talking about, though.
I remember
the high end is there
with the Expos for Mark Langston.
Yep.
Who the hell's Randy Johnson?
Mark Langston.
Mark Langston. Yeah. Hashtag
old school California Angels.
Yeah, but
you older people in the crowd that remember that.
Yeah, we know what they're going to do, and they're not being secretive about it at all. And to their credit, they understand that it's kind of like in the, say, mid 2000s when everything was Dungy / Urlacher / Lovie Smith Tampa 2. You wanted smaller guys who could sort of, move with receivers. And then the LOB came around, and for a while, everyone wanted, Richard Sherman type. Well, good luck with that. It seems like now there are, I remember reviewing this class and doing all the tape stuff for Touchdown Wire. And I'm thinking to myself, and I talked to some people who would know, and we all agreed, I can't remember a draft where there were this many corners, 5'11" or taller, and say 190 or heavier.
Yeah, that's Legion of Boom, though. I mean, the kids that are playing now were 10 years old when that was going on.
So they all want to be Sherm, and now those those baby Sherms are coming out.
Exactly.
The Steelers were able to benefit from that with this, and like I talked about with Quick Game. So you have these baby Sherms coming out, playing press, long wingspans, really hyper aggressive, and you have more Quick Game where you have to, again, disrupt the receiver at the line of scrimmage. You have to prevent the quarterback from taking a 3-step drop and just throwing it, or the RPO and just throwing it. Yep. You have to create a cloud in the quarterback's head. These guys can do that, and that's why it's so valuable. That's why you're going to see more press in the NFL. There's it's going to be like the 70s where everyone wanted to just, beat you up like the Raiders did. That's what it's going to be.
Yep. I think that is the antidote to a massive proliferation of Quick Game in the NFL. The comment in here,
safety switches and nickel and dime. Obviously, there was in the 70s, but as far as the outside guys, or Mike Haynes and Lester Hayes in the early 80s, that's the model now. That's what people want.
Yep, as usual with the NFL, things regress back to what they once were. There's not a whole lot of ingenuity. It's just a modern take on stuff that's been done before. That's kind of where I want to take you here.
Time is a flat circle.
It's been mentioned in the comments a couple times, and I understand the trendy obviousness of this, considering the team in which we're discussing. Joe Burrow and the Bengals didn't create Quick Game. Okay, this is not a response to the Bengals. This is a response to the NFL.
It's a response to the whole league.
To say nothing of the fact, like you touched on before, the Steelers run this more than anybody does offensively.
Sometimes it really doesn't work, so maybe they should do some different things. But that's, as I said, a different podcast.
They're growing in that way. There's signs of optimism.
No more screen passes on 4th down. Thank you very much.
Yeah, we'll see. Quarterback checks along with Quick Game creates a lot of this, and as usual, it goes down to the intelligence of your quarterback. How are they reading the defense? From a defensive perspective, though, to me, this is what it comes down to. If you are Steelers opponent, you're seeing the Steelers defense. You've got TJ Watt off to your right. You know that he is there. You're fighting for 3 seconds.
Yes.
There is a 3-second battle that's going to be engaged between the offense and the defense that's going to win or lose the play for both
3
sides.
3 seconds max. It's really more like 2.6.
Just for the sake of simple numbers, I'm saying 3 seconds. TJ breaks that probably down to 2.
There's a reason Pro Football Focus has pre 2.5 and post 2.5.
Yes. Yeah.
That's kind of where it is.
All right. You know what? Let's say 2 then. 2 seconds. The idea of press corners is to disrupt the guys at the line and to put bodies inside, to clog lanes, to not have the easy look, to not have the hot route readily available wherever. You're in an aggressive position. The Steelers traditionally, and this goes back a long time now, have always defended the big play above anything else.
Right.
People have yelled for years how far off the field side cornerback is from the receiver on second and medium plays. They're lining up pretty far back. They're looking to get away from that, largely because teams are just simply able to take what they're given and create the advantage of these insanely quick, incredibly talented open field runners that get the ball, get their shoulders square, and move around. And one thing that
you look at the reverse proliferation, the degradation of the numbers in 5 to 7 step drops in like the last 10 years. And I've done work on this. It's hilarious.
Yeah. It's not surprising.
If you see a 7-step drop now, you're like, what?
Yeah. It's weird. It's weird. And
Yeah.
teams still do that against the Steelers. Just to
Yeah.
bring it back to, for the sake of the audience here, before we totally geek out, the Steelers have led the NFL in sacks for the last 7 years combined. They have more sacks than anybody does over that time. TJ Watt will register at least a pressure if you block him with a tight end and you drop 7. And teams still do that. I don't know why. Honestly, TJ Watt wouldn't have the sack numbers he had if the Cleveland Browns had any sense of how to protect for half of TJ's career. Most of it is from that.
Bengals, who are much worse.
Yeah, the Bengals. I rip on the Browns just because I remember TJ. His first game was against the Browns. He had 3 sacks because it was like they didn't even realize he was there. That I'm not putting Watt in the Hall of Fame because of that game. He was going up against Deshaun Kaiser.
You should probably block him.
Yeah, it's like, oh yeah, there's that guy again. Now he's got 3 sacks and that interception from earlier. We're really having a problem here with our rookie dumbass quarterback and our complete lack of protection in our scheme. Is that the year they won a game? I think there were a couple of those back then. But getting back to schematic differences in the NFL, you and I have talked about this a lot. I'm not suggesting this is what started quick game, but to me, I see a transcendent moment in the NFL when Aaron Rodgers got hurt. I think he got hurt twice in the 2010 season.
Mm-hmm.
It knocked the Packers back quite a bit. Obviously, a very talented team, very opportunistic defense. They made plays on the ball defensively. They were good at that. Offensively, they got screwed because they didn't have their quarterback, but because their coach was killing their quarterback at the same time. You and I have talked about this. I remember distinctly the beginning of Rodgers' career.
Don't give me
I know. I'm taking you down the runway. You're on camera. There's no way I'm avoiding McCarthyism. Let's call it that from now on.
Too much of that anyway right now.
Rodgers dropped 5 to 7 every damn snap. And he was getting killed. What they did after he came back from, I believe it was his second injury that season where he missed at least a game. What they did was, instead of retreating backwards like he's a quarterback in the 60s, they had him drop 3, make a look, and if it wasn't there, he escaped to the side. And he was mobile. He could get to the side away from your A-gap pressure and then bow out a little bit away from the edge. So he just tilted the field to a point where now he's throwing down the angles.
I remember when I was at Sports Illustrated writing a piece in 2015 on what was then called package plays. And it was really the sort of elemental RPO. Packers were running RPO concepts in the early 2010s. So, but for a lot of people, and I couldn't have been McCarthy who figured that out. It had to be someone else.
Somebody told him.
I refuse to acknowledge this.
It's Joe Philbin. It's just hilarious. Recently hired by Ohio State. I haven't heard Joe Philbin's name in a long time.
I would take that over McCarthy. Anyway. And then that proliferation, to use the word correctly now, of RPO concepts. I remember talking to Frank Reich when he was the Eagles OC when they the Super Bowl media week when they beat the Patriots, and he was starting to talk about the second and third level RPOs, and that was how I finished my book because I had just talked to him about it when I was at Bleacher. So it's not just it's like everything in the deep passing game evolves from the quick game. It's like but the quick game now is the epicenter of your passing game. It's kind of the epicenter of your offense.
Yeah, exactly. I was going to say it's
their run game too. Their run game worked so well because it was all based off quick, and so their run game was based off their passing game. Their quarterback was their entire system. So the collegification of the NFL that has a lot to do with it too. These guys, they've never been in a huddle. They look over and see Donald Duck and the number 6. Oh, that's the play.
They don't huddle. They're not under center.
Right.
They're taking audibles. They're not reading a defense.
Right. So quick game is the whole point. So, and everything rolls off of that. So what do you have to do? Go get as many of those baby sherms as possible, which the Steelers are doing. So that's, that's how you kind of wrap the whole thing up.
Full circle. This is why I wanted to have you on the show. I knew that this is where it would go. It's as clear as day, and every move they're doing speaks to it. And in many ways, it is the antidote. I'm not saying that it's going to work. I'm saying that the Steelers, Trice might get a decent amount of snaps.
Well, it's going to work better than playing guys 8 yards off.
Yeah, I mean, you can't. There are plenty of reasons to worry about deep passing, but the bottom line is they're just going to bleed you in the middle, and it's not the Dick LeBeau style defense anymore. Tackle the catch, make them complete 11 passes down the field, because eventually you're going to hit their quarterback. Quarterbacks are just getting rid of the ball. They're not dropping.
Even like the most prolific deep passers in the, like Josh Allen, I think had 104 attempts over 20 air yards or more. Well, he had over 600 passing attempts.
Yeah, exactly.
One out of every 6 passes at most is a deep pass.
And that is by statistical measurement a high amount.
If that's what you're worrying about the most, you've got this thing backwards.
Right. That's what I'm saying. The Steelers have caught up to that and are making what I feel anyway is a radical change from what they've done in the past. Right. And they have run man. You know, to clarify, you said this before. I have this in my notes as well. I want to make sure people are aware of that. They have not played a zone concept fully in a long time. They're playing man. It's just not press.
Only 6 teams had more snaps in man coverage last season.
Yeah, the Steelers play a ton of man. And
but
yes,
that's
the reason.
Man isn't always press, and press isn't always man.
Right.
Press is a different thing.
Exactly. It depends on where your zone is. If you're playing, if anybody out there that played linebacker in a more rudimentary defense, you know, if you get spread out, there's a tight end that's on you. You're chucking him at the line and you're dropping. You're playing hook to curl. That's more or less what they're doing, right, just with a wider zone of coverage. Yep. You're going to see the Steelers press and be more aggressive at the line of scrimmage. And in a way, I feel anyway, the emphasis of their defense, which has been largely on their outside linebackers and certainly their pass rush, their A-gap penetration, certainly from their inside linebackers, their emphasis is going to be more on their corners, which, if we want to call them corners anymore, the 3 guys that are covering the receivers at or around the line of scrimmage, which is your outside corners and your slot.
No, they're corners. I mean, you can do a lot of different things with your corners, and maybe your safety is your like overhang slot guy.
That's another point. What are we defining as a slot corner anymore? Why can't it be a safety?
It's like I say interior defensive lineman, because no one lines up in the same gap twice in a game.
The technique is not,
I will say,
anymore.
If a guy's playing outside and he's got a number in his 20s, he's a cornerback, you know, or in his whatevers. I say slot defender because it could be anything.
Yeah, exactly. It's the receiver who is inside the last guy on the line.
Well,
that's really what it comes down to.
Receivers.
Yeah, or you got 2 of them. Steelers ran bunch with Antonio Brown all the time.
They're 3x1 nightmare stuff. You have 2. You have your outside and your inside slot guy. Mm-hmm. And good luck with that, because it's like.
So then it has to be a safety.
T. Higgins and Tyler Boyd. You better have some guys who can press.
Yep.
You better have some guys.
You have to, pardon the language, but you have to fuck that up at the line of scrimmage. You can't let those guys release.
Impact those routes immediately off the line. You can't be sitting there waiting for something to happen, because by then it's already happened and you're screwed.
Another point that I want to make along with all of this is bodies getting in the way is pro defense. Bodies being cleared out is pro offense.
Yes.
Let's not consider this like a video game in which certain patterns just happen to emerge. Chaos is dudes on the ground. Chaos is people just getting in the way of things. How many tip passes do we see last year from Watt and Hayward combined? Sure. A bunch. And it's because they're not necessarily rushing the passer. They are playing, in essence, a quick game pass rush.
Right.
They're seeing off the line what's coming.
Yeah, that's a Watt family trait, right?
Right, exactly. They're reading what's going on. And TJ Watt knows if he's only dropping 3, even I probably can't get past this ginormous tackle who's already set in his stance, because he's jumping to that point immediately. That's an indication that this is a short pass. So I'm going to sit here and read the quarterback's eyes and make a play on the ball. Steelers fans might remember, gosh, was that 2 seasons ago? I already feel like, or was it last year? I'm already forgetting this. But the Ravens are down 1 at the end of regulation, and they decided to go for 2. Lamar Jackson under center, I don't blame them for wanting to do that. But what they tried to do was get on a play action boot, get Lamar outside of Watt while you have the tight end that I worship. I can't remember his name either. Mark Andrews. God, I'm off today. Have him slip behind Watt. In other words, do you want the play was designed to force Watt to either drop to stop that lane and give up the outside to Jackson, or take advantage of Watt rushing straight at Jackson, where Jackson could just flip a pass really quick. Watt kind of didn't commit to either of them. He stayed home, and because of that, made it extremely difficult for Jackson to deliver the ball. These are all kinds of the same things that I feel the Steelers defense is trying to do, philosophically, not physically, because obviously it
can you vamp for 1 minute? I got a wife thing to deal with. Okay. I'll be back in 60 seconds.
No worries. I can ramble all day. Not a big deal. I want to thank Luke Easterling for giving us the comment of the day so far. Other Steelers news that I did not mention at the top of the segment. Artie Burns signed a 1-year contract extension with the Seattle Seahawks. Apparently he is still playing there. I believe he is a special teams guy, but since we're on the topic of cornerbacks, Burns is probably the least popular Steelers first round draft pick in team history, which is funny to me because in my opinion, Jarvis Jones was far more detrimental than Burns. Burns was a throwaway. Burns was the 25th pick because the guy they wanted went 24. You take a cornerback because they want him. The size that he had, though, the athleticism that he had fit in well with the concepts that they were trying to run at that point, which was really kind of more of a man trail technique. What changed, and obviously there's a ton of time between the end and the beginning of all this, Steelers got Minkah Fitzpatrick. The value of having that deep center fielder can bail you out of situations. I think that is what the Steelers will probably do more of this season. They'll have him dropping back a bit more. He has been attacking up front a bit more with press coverage, having that safety valve on the back end to make plays on the ball deep down outside the numbers. Those are good things, but that's when your press corners are most vulnerable. If the guy can get off the jam and get outside, that's a winnable throw for the quarterback. But when you have Minkah Fitzpatrick out there, probably the best ball hawk in the NFL, the Steelers are setting up a philosophy that counters what the NFL is doing top to bottom, what their personnel can do in some elements. Okay, great pass rush, legendary pass rushers, Cam Hayward from his position, TJ Watt. These are Hall of Fame level players. They're going to get to the quarterback if the quarterback has the ball after 2.5 seconds. Quick game is designed to eliminate a pass rush. You just need to have your receivers open, and it's much more dependent upon scheme. Now, getting to the point that I was making as far as chaos is concerned, when you have chaos at the line of scrimmage, you have bodies around everywhere, it's hard to complete a pass. It's hard to see where to go. Guys aren't open if a guy is right there. It's not necessarily pretty. It's just creating bodies in space, guys that get in the way of everything. That's very pro defense. The Steelers have the personnel to do this with the exception of their cornerbacks. Now they drafted the cornerbacks. We will see how Porter does. I've said this 3 shows in a row right now. I really don't want to express ridiculous optimism in regards to Trice, but there's a lot to like in the scheme that we are discussing. The specific nature of what we are saying they're going to play, there's a lot to like about him. That might be the only thing that he can do, but I think he can do that pretty well. I mean, he needs some work, but I think his value as a draft pick dropped more out of the fact that that's not exclusively what he did, and he's built to do that. They thought that he was a safety for some reason. I feel like he can play outside in a press coverage scheme in the NFL, and that's why they drafted him. But they got him in the 7th round. That's why it just seems kind of weird. We'll see what else they do. I don't think they're done with making moves either. There are veterans out there that they could sign that fit philosophically with what they're trying to do. How they're going to deploy Patrick Peterson, I think, is something to watch. I've heard conflicting stuff as far as what people are saying about his ability to play inside. He can play trail. Not to say that they're never going to play that again. He's probably not, going to be at his best as a press corner anymore, but maybe you could play him inside for what they're trying to do. Put him around the line of scrimmage, let him follow the ball. It might be a valuable signing just as a weapon, more so than a base component of whatever they're doing defensively.
Just to bust in, you can't base anything off the Vikings defense last year because schematically it was an absolute ass grab.
I mean, physically though, he didn't look great taking guys across, and it's guys like my age. I mean, he can't really turn and cross. He's not going to be able to cross step and accelerate with a slot receiver on a slant.
Yeah. Peterson had 4 snaps in press last year, or 4 targets in press. He can still do it. He's not.
Well, they're paying him for it. I'm not suggesting it's a bad move.
The term I use is match feet, and match coverage. The Saban cover 7 stuff is so prevalent also in the NFL today, and a lot of that has to do with counter and quick game. Peterson, I'm just looking at a couple plays here. He's still got pretty good match feet, which is where you go, I go, and my feet lead the way. I think he still has a surprising amount of that for his, tenure. Let's put it that way. And the thing about press, where it gets weird for a lot of guys, and Porter and Trice will both struggle with this at the NFL level. When you have your Jamar Chases and your, the guys who just elevate their game and move you to places you don't want to go. The problem with being a great press corner is that it's okay. What happens after you disrupt and the guy gets off, and like, what's his route? Where's his go? Where is his option? Can you follow those things? One of the reasons Porter wasn't my CB1 was because both Devin Witherspoon and Christian Gonzalez were far more adept at matching receiver through the route. Once you got past Porter just putting his hands on you and fucking you up, it kind of got weird. And it got better last season than it did the season before. You could tell, when he said I was working on zone and I was working on matching and all that, you can tell on tape that, yes, he did. And so you can see that continued development. I think it'll be more of an issue with Trice. But again, I think of the best press corners I've seen in like Patrick Surtain. Vic Fangio in his 3 years with the Broncos went from 32% man to 42% man. One reason, Patrick Surtain, because I wrote a thing when you were over here about the best press man corners in his class. And it was like Patrick Surtain and a bunch of guys because he's exceptional. To get a Darius Slay, a Lenoir from San Francisco, who really, I'm thinking I have to write a press man corner listicle. It's what makes you special. And I think Slay and Surtain are probably the best press man corners in the NFL right now. It's because they can go from oppressive, just stalking you at the line to match feet. It's like, then you've got everything. Then you've got everything in a defender that is needed to counter quick game. Devin Witherspoon has this. Christian Gonzalez is he's more a technician than an aggressor. He's like the reverse Joey Porter. He's beautiful. And Belichick's going to have to.
He really is.
Belichick is going to have to insert that dog in him. Now, he's a great player, but he's more artistic.
Yeah, he's a technique down the field cover kind of guy.
When people talk about like the beautiful game in soccer, the orange theory in soccer, like he would be a good if he was like the Johan Cruyff of cornerbacks.
Tweet that one. That's a great line.
Whereas Porter is just, I'm gonna fuck you up. And but once you get past me is where it gets strange.
Yeah.
So, and Tomlin, not a lot of better DB coaches, not a lot of people in Terrell Austin. They've got the staff to do it, but you're going to see some ugly reps. The thing is, as you discussed, you can have ugly reps in press, you can have ugly reps in off. The ugly reps in off against today's passing game.
I know exactly what you're going to say.
Will kill you much more.
Yep, exactly. Ugly is not failure in press. That's the thing.
No,
ugly is chaos. That's what I'm talking about.
You're asking a cornerback to do so much, from aggression to dancing. You're basically beating someone up and then dancing with them. It's kind of weird.
This is why they did not draft Christian Gonzalez. That's
Absolutely.
It dawned. I really wanted him.
If he had been there when if he and Porter had been there on the board, start of the second day, I would bet my ass that they would have taken Porter anyway.
Yeah, to be honest with you,
and Gonzalez is a great player. Oh my God, he's so good.
Yeah. Oh yeah, he's going to be really good. It's not going to be the way that they
was able to trade down to get him.
Yeah,
there are reasons for that, and
they're
not
deal.
And they're not technical. They're aggressive. He's not necessarily that guy. He's a different guy. If this was like 2010, he might have been the first overall pick.
Yeah, exactly.
Because then you needed those.
It's not today's defense. It's yesterday's defense that he is really good at. And I'm not trying to trivialize him at all. I just overall
he has every bit of the technique to be a press corner. He's got the wingspan. He's got the length. He's good. But his family is a track background.
Yeah, he's like my side. He's not.
These days, you need more of Frazier than an Ali.
You need a dog.
Yeah,
I think that's to your point. This is what has warmed me up about Porter, that dog mentality. That
he's got several.
We're gonna play ugly.
He's got
just gonna beat the shit out of you up front.
He and Trice both have a whole freaking pack of dogs in them,
and that's why I'm excited about this. That's exactly why I wanted to bring you on.
Yeah, they have made as empirical a statement as they possibly can about what kind of defense they want to play,
and they're gonna be mean.
Yeah.
You know, I don't. That's. It's weird to say, but honestly, it's like I think Trice is going to be out there a lot.
Yes.
And I think that's why they cut Witherspoon. They wanted to get Trice in person to see, and they signed off on it saying, look, this is what we want to do. There's not much he needs to do except beat the shit out of the guy within 5 yards. And we'll take the dirt that comes with that because we've got the best, to equate it to soccer again, we've got the best sweeper on the back end of the game.
Yes.
We're just going to have him not play up front so much, as it was pointed out in the comments too, not lead our team in tackles. And we'll put run defenders at the inside linebacker spots instead of the A-gap bombers that we've had playing that position for however long. That's what they got.
And another thing, when the more press leads to more too high. Because unless you have a Minka, and not many people do, where he can range all the way from post to this sideline or that sideline and just eat it up. Not a lot of Minkas in this league. So you have to double your efforts in the back.
Yep. I agree completely. And
that's, like if you're playing a ton of 2-man, which I could see the Steelers doing, you have to rush with 4 because you got 7 defenders in the back. That's just math. So, can they rush with 4? Yes, they can.
They can, and they will. And it's something that has probably that would probably indicate, for what we can see in the most conventional way to describe it, the largest departure in defensive strategy that they have had since Mean Joe retired.
Yeah,
I don't think that's even all that bold of a statement.
This is more Mel Blount dropping Cliff Branch on his head than anything they've done in a while.
Exactly. And to be honest, it's a welcome change. They just never signed these guys. Yeah. And, to this day still, as Luke so eloquently put into my head, Artie Burns is still the only cornerback they've drafted in the first round since 1996. Yep. So they're getting guys now to play very specifically and not be these solid all-around development projects like a Cam Sutton that they've relied on to be their cornerbacks in the last 3 decades. They're not doing that.
As always, they're not booing. They're saying Boo Earns.
Boo Earns. Hey, he's your guy now. You see him around town, right?
My guy. I just live here. I don't have a team.
You are listening to the New Standard Podcast. I'm Neil Coulong. I'm here with the legendary himself, Doug Farrar, Seattle native, Legion of Boom historian, NFL rock star, and rock star.
8 guitars over there.
Yeah, you gotta be. Why aren't those in the background? Why don't you have those up there?
So I try to appear smart with all the books.
The guitar's cooler.
Plus, I haven't had time to play these guitars in like 8 months.
So you're watching Joey Porter, Corey Trice.
Exactly.
Same name, no gimmick. Nobody gets that. Anyway, I appreciate you coming on today, Doug. Just to go over it once again, in case you are starting at the back end of the broadcast, Doug Farrar was our guest today. We were talking about the Steelers and their launch into press coverage, modernizing their defense to go up against today's quick game based offense. Quick game is something the Steelers run at a prolific rate anyway. To have a defense to match up against that, against teams that run a good chunk of it within their division, A+, and this really caps off, in my opinion anyway, and they're not done yet either, one of the best, I hate to say best, but just the smartest offseason the Steelers have had in a long time. And I'm not saying that they've always been dumb, but they moved with purpose and they scored in many ways with everything that they did. We talked about the defense today. We want to dive into the offense eventually as well. We're going to do that. We do everything here on the New Standard Podcast, but that's it for us today. Look for us next week when our captain, Lance Williams, is back from his assignment. Godspeed his return to the borders of the United States after defending us from tyranny.
Is he hanging out with Frank Drebin?
That's what I should have done.
Something weird.
We'll make him Ed, the captain of Police Squad.
Yeah.
Good stuff, Doug. Thanks for coming on. Thanks for everybody for listening. That is going to end it for us today. Look for us again at 10:15 Eastern, 7:15 Pacific, Wednesday next week. Thank you all for listening in.